Back at it with the supernatural conventions today, because Greg and John got some new shirts. We're going to watch from Supernatural Conventions, Smolders, Regrets, and Hotel Room Doors. Thank you so much for putting this together. Guys, over at our Patreon page, we have made it to Supernatural Season 6. Only one more season left to go, and then we're fully caught up on the series. I think that's the way it goes.
7 seasons.
I appreciate everyone who has shown their support by becoming a Patronaject. It's meant a hell of a lot. It's been one hell of a journey over there. We cover a lot of TV shows where we have the option for reaction highlights and watch-alongs where you sync up with the time code all at the same tier for many shows such as Supernatural, Doctor Who, just started up Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then a whole bunch of other shows. My God, look at the thumbnails. Thumbnails galore over here because there's so many TV shows that we cover. My God.
And music videos, sometimes even including Jensen Ackles performances.
So, I have a question. You guys have been working on the show for so long. Besides each other...
Wait, take it easy. You guys have been working on the show for so long.
Right then.
Yes, thank you.
Besides each other, who is the closest to you guys, like family-wise, within the cast and crew?
I'm pretty close to this chick who played Ruby.
Who will now be on Walker.
We're real close. Is everybody 18? No. I wonder if they have like actual drama schools. Some of you might actually be a picture of this, but like these really fancy drama schools, they actually have courses that deal with green screen acting or acting to an imaginary universe or imaginary. There was just reading the dialogue from the other person. Yeah, it's totally bizarre, and it's something that you really have to kind of get used to and understand and learn. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody teaching that or that being in the curriculum. What's that? Started. Just the supernatural school of acting to nothing. And I don't need The green team is the vampire, and the blue team is the demon, and the red team. Okay, fight. You'll also notice that our graves are dug with laser precision. Perfect rectangles. You got really good at it. I don't know if you've ever tried to dig a hole 6 feet into the ground. It's not pretty. Ours is.
So we're shooting an episode of Supernatural. This was, I think it might have been season 4 or 5, and there's this table. There's this table. We're in an operating room. There's a heart on the table. I remember, and Jared and Jensen are standing on one side of the table, and I approach, and I have my dialogue, and I come up to the table, and I'm saying my dialogue, and Jared has a broomstick in his hand under the table, and he finds my crotch.
Which is hard to find, by the way.
Parenting 101.
Full disclosure. Just disclosure, man.
If we don't have Parenting 101 trending at the end of this, I don't know. We failed.
So every take, he's like doing that, and then the first AD takes the broom away from him, and then on subsequent takes, he's just like making faces at me when I come up. One of my special skills on my resume is not laughing when someone does something while I'm on camera. So I was messing up every take. The director was getting angry because he didn't see what Jared was doing, and Jensen stepped up and he said, "Hey man, don't even look at him. Just look at me. Just look at me." I was like, thank you for that lifeline. Like one person, he did that. And so we did the next take, and I come up and I look at Jensen and he goes,
Fish in a barrel.
Stuff writes itself.
So look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yes. this. It was disgusting.
Oh, he really ate raw meat?
Vegetarian ground sausage mixed with tomato paste and uncooked. You should try it sometime. Very nice. Vegetarian ground sausage carpaccio. Super disgusting. Really gross. Really, really gross. It just sort of turned into a paste in my mouth. And, yeah, not a fond memory. Not a fond memory.
I'm really tall, sorry.
I know the feeling. How really
He
tall?
doesn't.
Sorry, Mark.
What do you mean, sorry, Mark?
Yeah, it's.
Do you know what they did to me last week? We took a picture, right? There's a four shot of us.
Wait,
Right?
should we show them? Let's just show them
It's
what
the
we did.
worst picture ever, right? This is what they do to me.
So
I'm on the end.
we put him next to me.
That was it.
They're all
I was like
taking
this.
photos.
And we get ready for the photograph. I'm 5'4" in the photograph. I'm the only one who didn't spot it, of course. Until I get photo.
And then he sees, he's like, wait a second, but are y'all on your tiptoes? And we're like, and by the way, we didn't even discuss it before it happened.
They
We
just
all
did it
just kinda knew.
automatically.
Zink.
That's my life. My wife is 6 feet tall, so I feel
am
the
too.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. Tall girls are special.
And tall boys.
Not so much.
Tall girls are special.
And your question is?
For Misha.
Okay, I gotta remember my question. Day one, you had a resume before Supernatural. Years later, is there any special skills you could say you've added since then?
Is breaking wind a special skill?
Besides farting.
There's certainly some I need to scratch off. Really?
No, you can. It's with like Kinko's and FedEx or whatever. You could just devour your old resume and come up with a whole new one. I mean, just in all the days of your lives, you can just do it.
Oh, my dude.
We're all like, where's he going with this?
Days of our lives.
I mean, that's true. And I'll wait till, Friday, probably the 13th, and then...
Burn.
And I'll just get it all done and just go vacation in a Christmas cottage somewhere.
It'll take a New York minute.
He's throwing himself under the bus. He's like, wait, I gotta throw myself under it.
Yeah, just maybe somewhere nice, somewhere near Stonehenge, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard the apocalypse was there, man. I don't want to. In all honesty, I think that the habits I've learned I'll probably never work again.
You know that the American
will probably
government...
not fly.
Do you know that the American government actually hired Jared to break into iPhones?
That's right. The FBI's trying to get Apple, and they're like, we can't get in. We can't get in.
Call Padalecki.
He steals your phone, and while he looks like, oh yeah, I love this picture, he's tweeting, I hate my fans, I pick my nose.
I think
my
there is a couple of special skills that I'd put on that apparently not a lot. Hitting a mark, remembering my lines. Those are apparently special skills in our industry these days.
I would certainly fucking hope so.
I've never used them.
Yeah.
I've never used those. Who needs lines? and
Mark's still
marks?
trying to learn.
Hey guys, I just want to see you've been doing it for 11 years, your CW Smolders.
Wasn't she on How I Met Your Mother? Oh no, it's Kobe Smolders.
We have it. It's called the labored inhale. 1, 2, 3.
Can I just briefly sidebar there? That reminds me of the first year that I went to the upfronts with you guys, and you guys had at that point absolutely perfected the CW Smolder.
Yeah.
So we got up. Can we just do one more demonstration? We got up to the red carpet to do the shots, and it was like this.
And you didn't know until the next day when you see all the shit online. You're like, what was I doing? Why did no one tell me? What is that?
It's not true. They know.
Just the super earnest, like, I'm on a show with these guys and I'm happy.
There's also like the decidedly, like, pointedly casual glance to the back of your shoe where you're like, as if like, did I step on something?
Yeah, or did somebody ask me a question? No?
That's a classic. That's a TV classic.
I still don't think it's fair that that's called the smolder, but that's just me. Thank you. Let's go. Burn indeed.
Jared, you're
That's me.
Jared, you're
Got it. I'm sorry about this guy.
Don't make her cry. Don't make her cry.
Sorry, go. Just a little more to go. Go for it.
Jared. Jared, your hair looks very nice today.
We're in the same plaid.
They look like
They're the exact same clothes. Yeah, their pants are the same too.
She got it out, and you couldn't say nothing.
But that was not my question.
Sorry, I don't like it anymore.
Do either of you ever look back, kind of in retrospect?
Well, it's funny that you should ask.
At a scene or maybe an entire episode and just think to yourself, maybe I should.
Man, I'm awesome.
You're so annoying.
What'd she say?
Ever look back on a scene and say, maybe I should have played that differently, or said that line differently, and...
Okay, I think you got it out. More so, I have that, those kind of reflective moments about, well, Jared's performances. You know, when I'm watching the final cut of an episode, I'll often think, oh man, I wish he would have delivered that line differently, or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I get those. I lose well. I'm just kidding. Plenty of emotions. All the time, honestly, oh yeah. The terrible part of television is a lot of times you get like a preparation, and sometimes you're doing like the end. We did a stretch of like 12 episodes in season 4 or 5, where literally the first day of shooting we filmed the last scene of the episode. Just the way it's locations, you know? And so we filmed this scene, and then the next day we filmed the scene that happened before, and be like, oh dude, I didn't realize that like that's what was going on.
It's hard too because it's like, obviously you haven't read the script.
He was ready to get back.
Misha, do you have an actual, honest... think pretty funny, don't you?
I think Misha needs a timeout.
You need a timeout.
What'd you say? For me, it's often just about, you know, like I'll watch a scene and I can see the corners of my mouth curling. Like, I was not able to hold laughter.
We're always making Misha laugh. We're trying. Or trying? Did you say? I guess it's
No, not trying. Yeah, you're always succeeding.
I wish I did more often. I wish I was able to more properly sabotage other actors other than Misha.
Yeah, that must be gross. Like, you can take me down so easily.
That's what she said.
It's actually must be like a little.
That's what she said.
Like, isn't it a little less fun now than it was in the beginning? Because
No.
it's so easy.
It's so much more fun.
It's better.
You make them go away for shooting your scene though.
Whenever,
That's hard.
whenever it's possible, yes.
Literally, remember when you
Thank you.
literally made us leave the stage because we were peeking in? And you were like, no, they're still on stage. I really think they're outside the stage. Like, here's the scene and the set, and then we were outside the set, and then we had to full on go like back to our trailers.
You know what was awful about that scene? It was because I felt like, I finally won this round. They're gone. But it was actually a scene with a lot of talking in it between you two and me. The characters actually still had to talk to each other. So Robin Props was standing there reading your lines, and next to her was Tammy. And Tammy's like super short, and that was Jensen. Both women. And Robin was reading the lines like this, but holding her hand up like this. That's supposed to be Jared's face. And I started laughing again. This is ridiculous. So I could not be cured that day.
So last night,
I was recommended someone said Jensen's hotel story a long time ago.
true story. We get home from dinner, and it's getting late. Dinner was a little later. People go out a little later than normal here, I think. Are we totally off on that? No. Okay. So it was a little later than normal. We get back to the hotel a little later than anticipated. It was like, okay, we gotta go to bed. Like, we gotta wake up early. So we all went to our respective floors, and I went to my room and put the key in, put the key in, put the key in. Back on the elevator, back down to the lobby. My key doesn't work. Here, try a new key. Thank you. Back up the door, key, nothing. Key, nothing. Key, nothing. Then Dean started to be born. So I go back downstairs and I'm like, no working. And that's not French. He understood it. Then he's like, let me use my key. So he comes up with his master key and he nothing. Master key, nothing. He's like, oh, I don't know what this is not good. Yeah, keep in mind, it's late. It's after midnight. And I'm tired, and I want to go to bed. And I know I gotta get up and put on a show for you guys, because that's why we're here, and that's what we love to do. And so he's like, I'm sorry, this is not, I will call the maintenance guy. So maintenance guy comes up with his old tool belt, and he basically does the exact same thing that we've been doing. Puts the key in, no, it's not working. I'm like, yes, we've established that it's not working. How do we get it to work? I don't have the tools that are required to do this. We're going to have to call a locksmith. Okay. Do that then. There is no locksmith, that's 24 hours. There's nothing that we have to wait till the morning. Well, that's not gonna work for me. The front desk guy is like, well, we will get you into another room, the presidential suite. I'm like, I don't care about the president. I want to get into my room, and I want to get into it now so that I can go to bed and wake up and go to work. There's nothing that we can do today. I'm so sorry. What would you like us to do? Get in my room! And I'm like, listen, if you can't get into my room, I will get into my room. And he's like, I'm sorry? I said, are you saying that you cannot open this door? Is that, yes, is it impossible? Okay, I'm gonna kick the door in. And he just goes, okay. And I was like, that's all I needed. Walked over, slid the furniture that was in the hallway aside, stepped back, boom!
Damn.
it exploded the door and left a hole in it like this big. It was basically the entire mechanism of the locking mechanism. I thought the door would swing open and then the door jamb would have broken, but no, the entire lock and handle and iron plate that it was on went through the door. And I looked at him, I go, "You're gonna need a new door." Good times. Open, the door swung open nice and free. It closed with a big giant hole in it, and I went to bed.
The upshot of that story is anybody here could have spied on him in his sleep last night.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
At that point, I didn't care.
Some lucky guest.
I mean, I give it to the staff there. They honestly, I don't think it ever crossed their mind that the big Texan standing before them was going to murder their hotel room. I think his response, okay, was more like, "I'm not quite sure I understand what you're saying to me." But I didn't wait for him to figure it out. I just destroyed the door. So
long story short, his favorite part of being on the show is learning important life skills.
But Spade actually said something to me. I think it was Spade. No, it was Rob. It was Rob. Rob said something. He was like, "Do you think that if you didn't kick down doors all the time on the show, that idea would have ever crossed your mind?" I'm like, "I don't think it would have." But we kick down doors all the time. I'm like, this is obviously the progression of things to do. You try the key. If it does not work, you try a maintenance man. If that doesn't work, you break the freaking door down with your foot.
Life imitates art.
You're gonna need a new door. And see.
Aww.
We talk for 2 minutes per video.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't know what this lie is you're spreading here.
It's false advertising is what that is.
I got a question for you, Ash. When you put together these videos and you have this end graphic for us, which we're incredibly grateful for, which I'm always flattered to read. Do people ever go,
"What?
Who are these guys? Who's motherfuckers?
Why am I checking this out now?
Why would I care?
I'm not watching the video I just watched, but with these two.
They're a real reject. Who are these guys?
I hope you get comments.
It sounds like it's a real yeah, just people who are like so confused by
What
this
why
ending
do
plug.
all of your SPN related videos reference these guys? What do they have to do with the show?
I'm just messing with you. Thank you. I think Jensen Ackles being a Texan would have broken down that door regardless. From whatever stereotypes I know about Texans, that's what I'm gonna conclude.
It's just the instincts that rise from the pit of the Texan stomach.
And if Jared Padalecki had been drinking, he would have just headbutted that door open. We know that much.
And then fallen asleep in the doorway.
It would have been a great time. That was a great story. That story's been recommended. I forgot who, someone at our Patreon sent me that video specifically of a hotel. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been watching this for months and I just never have. I was actually really glad to hear it because that is a really funny story.
Oh, God,
I would be incredibly cranky and mad, and I wouldn't be able to sleep after that. I don't know how he was able to sleep. I don't care how tired you are. I would have been my pulse would have been up. I would have been furious with the treatment. I would have thought about how I'm not getting any sleep now. I would just be thinking about all the sleep I missed dealing with this problem. It would have bugged me all night, and I wouldn't have slept, and I would have just spent my whole day angry. It says more about me when I'm talking about me only and how I would feel, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I would be the maintenance man in there with like the car just going, I don't know.
I don't know.
Did you try this? So there you go.
Oh, I hate that too. And they just don't believe you.
Well, that and too, when you get somebody else to come help and there's that moment of like, oh, good, the maintenance man. And then the maintenance man isn't even going to do maintenance. He's just going to try the normal stuff that you would always try.
But a badass story. Shows and movies make it look easy to kick open a door. It's not.
It's not.
Believe it or not, I've tried.
Doors
are
so much thicker
especially
than
a hotel room door.
Which
you guys
are
gotta
like
have
reinforced.
strength, man.
Yeah. Well, and to kick like the whole locking mechanism through the door.
And he said it was one kick. In movies and shows, it's usually 3 kicks.
Yeah.
For like a big moment, 1, 2, then the third one gets the job done. Dope trope. Gotta write that down.
Schedule it in
Dope
the
trope. Mighty impressive on his end.
And even more impressive that they just let him go to sleep after that.
Yeah.
Just not gonna deal
This
with this
didn't lead
door.
to a lawsuit or something, you know?
I know.
It's like, granted, that was pretty messed up on their end. At the same time, you know, they were trying their best for what it sounded like and for the credit he gave. But I imagine like that must have been a hefty bill.
And you got the language barrier too. Although, you know, in these cases, I have to imagine that there are also people who deal with this. So maybe Jensen himself doesn't actually have to deal with the aftermath. Perhaps there's somebody from, you know, the network who deals with this.
Well, knowing Jensen, he probably fixed the door himself.
Yeah, he built a new door. He built a locking mechanism from scratch. He installed it, all with that Texas know-how.
And he learned it all from the show. All the things you learned from the show.
All those skills, yeah.
There were some great tidbits here. General things that some of them were talking about. Jared Padalecki and Misha, how they were talking about filming out of order and how that can be very tough. I used to constantly hear actors who come from theater say that they felt like that's more real acting because you go from beginning to end. You're not doing retakes. So you're really feeling the whole story from beginning to end. And then some actors do prefer film because you could really digest and dive into a whole scene. You know, that's where a great editor comes into play to make you look like this is one fluid storytelling with your performance on top of everything else. But you do gotta really do script examination on that on your end as an actor to be able to make sure that if you're filming the last scene first, that everything else coming before it, you know, and also without not fully preparing how you're going to do a scene exactly when it comes to, okay, I have to shoot an earlier scene in this story tomorrow or a few days from now, but, you know, I don't want to seem like a stiff performer or too much of a pre-planned performer. It's still got to feel natural. I feel like that's probably a common thing that people often have to deal with is filming out of order and how tough that can actually be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially I would imagine in TV and network TV where, you know, sometimes you're starting a shoot Monday morning and you don't have the script done Sunday night. Sometimes, like, I've seen this happen before where, yeah, like late in the night you'll get the script and then you start your prep. And it's, you know, up to at a certain point the writers to get that stuff to you on time. And it makes me wonder what kind of ship Supernatural had with the writer's room and getting the scripts to everybody and how much rewriting would have been done. Because, yeah, like if you have to go and immediately start off your shoot with the most, you know, emotionally heavy climactic scene, in ways I would imagine you can apply that to the other stuff you're shooting, but, you know, you can't bring that into a prior moment, you know, as if you're anticipating it in your performance. So, like, the level of compartmentalization, I imagine, that exists on a show like this has to be pretty formidable.
At the same time, though, you know, knowing these guys and how long they've been living these characters, even by this point of the episode that they're specifically referencing. I remember I once heard a story about how Kelsey Grammer on Frasier had been playing Frasier for so long that he would kind of just, you know, learn his lines a day of and just go into it because he just knows the character so well by this point that he doesn't have to do all this extra homework in order to really nail the performance. So I bet like on a first season, it's really rough, but by the time you really get to know your character, I imagine that you can just go in there and just seem very natural because you know your character in and out, how they'd be in that moment. Yeah. It's just more about, you know, having to really factor in the previous stuff. Because I know Misha makes that jab towards Jared about like, well, you didn't read the script. At the same time, though, you know, it's like actors are constantly discovering things in the middle of either rehearsing or in the middle of actually filming. They'll discover something about this scene, this emotional note that might come out of them spontaneously. So I can imagine a scenario where you are doing a scene that's prior to the final scene, and then you're like, oh man, if I had known this part of me would come out, or the actor who I'm in the scene with was gonna do this, I might have played that later scene a little different, you
Yeah.
know, which I can imagine can be frustrating, especially when you're watching yourself, and you can probably pick up on all those little things that, you know, that the audience is not able to tell, but you know, you're just like, you just keep beating yourself up. But I feel like for creative types, every time you look back at any work you've done, you're probably going to think, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done this different, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and I thought that was, you know, it's like asking that question or hearing somebody ask that question. I had to sit there and think they probably have like just more moments than you could ever describe to somebody that you would have wanted to do differently or improve upon or change given some other piece of context or information. But I think it too, I mean, you can see in these conventions, especially in the core cast, but even more especially just between Jared and Jensen, I have to imagine that having that real life rapport too, like I don't know exactly what their relationship is like, but it seems like they have a certain amount of that brotherly chemistry in real life, and I have to imagine that whatever telepathic link that creates can also create an extra level of comfort when it comes to, you know, being in that position. And it's funny because it made me think of Misha, because I felt for him in that moment. It was a really funny story, but the whole thing about Jensen coming to him and being like, look, just look at me and I'll support you for the scene, and then immediately on the next take he's screwing with him too.
Yeah.
I also think that maybe having that level too of like, okay, I gotta be on top of it, because if the camera's not on anybody else, you know, they're gonna be doing something else maybe. So it puts the onus on, I think, each performer to really have those roots too, you know.
So much of the stories are about messing with Misha. I know they all mess with each other. Who's the guy who plays Crowley? Mark Sheppard? Mark Sheppard, yeah. Okay, so Mark Sheppard, yeah, they mess with him too, but he seems like he's probably really good at ribbing it down, you know?
He seems like he I mean, like, they all seem like they enjoy it, but he seems like he would be like, oh, game on.
Yeah.
Because he's already got, it seems like from the way he behaves on stage as well as in the show, that sort of like secure and impish quality to him is a real one.
But with Misha specifically, it seems like they really love to mess with him. It makes me think of a couple of things, because one is, I imagine that having that level of loose environment is actually really good, and it can be actually really helpful even in a very dramatic scene that you're trying to do, or an intense kind of performance, because it loosens you up to express yourself. So some might think it's kind of contradictory. I know with British actors, they're often people who will constantly just, you know, not take each other that seriously in the most heavy of scenes. Because it does create kind of a playful environment, a willingness to really play around, and so that it opens you up and frees you up even in a really serious environment. You know, there's a certain line you can cross where you're just being completely disrespectful, like especially if someone has to like cry. Like I can imagine that big monologue scene where Dean is talking about, you know, being in hell and all he's had to do, and if Jared Padalecki was messing with him then, I'd imagine that is not helpful. You know,
you get mad at that point.
You know, so it's not a black and white scenario, but I imagine for a lot of it, it can be helpful. But what's funny to me about the dynamics that I'm constantly picking up on with them, Misha Collins is currently 46, Jared Padalecki 38, Jensen Ackles is 42. You know, hearing the ages of Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki and knowing that Supernatural's been on for so long, I thought they'd be like way closer to 50.
I know, right?
I thought they'd be so much older. I'm like, damn, they got so many years ahead of them. There's so much other work they can do still. That's
17 seasons of Walker.
That is crazy how much more fuel must be left in their tank. But Misha Collins is older than them, but yet they treat him like a younger brother that they pick on, you know, that they make fun of a lot. He gives it back to them often too. It's just funny to me, the dynamic of he's definitely older than them, yet they treat him like he's the younger sibling all the time.
And it does really come across that way, because also I think too, you know, you have, I mean, Misha Collins is reasonably tall, but Jared and Jensen are like 1,000,000 feet tall. I think that story about them doing the red carpet with Misha just being like, I'm gonna smile while these two do their Smolders. Like, he really does feel like the youngest brother in the sense that, like, these two have their simpatico rapport, and then Misha's almost like, not in a mean or a nasty way, but he's like the amusing odd one out in their trio, and that creates a whole other dynamic of fun and friction.
Yeah, man, they got that CW Smolder down perfect.
Oh my god.
I love when I think their self-awareness really shines through in their performances too, whenever they're doing a really comedic scene, or even that episode with the trickster and the televisions, and like the WandaVision episode essentially. that episode, that self-awareness that they have can really shine through in their comedic scenes especially. But when you see them on these interviews and these conventions and stuff, I love when they just make fun of themselves.
Naming off all their credits and stuff like that.
Supernatural conventions. This was another fun one to cover. Thank you again, Ash. Hey, subscribe to Supernatural Conventions channel. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Please click that notification bell to get notified whenever we got a new YouTube video up. Check us out on Patreon, where we, of course, covering Supernatural. Last but not least, let's do a... I'd like to shout out a man named David Gandinator. David Gandy. My God. What a journey you and I have been on together so far. I know in the Bay Area, it was really on fire recently, so I hope your health is all right. I know that you've had one hell of a really... It's a testing year, I'll say that. It's been a testing year for you. We've all had to deal with it in some way with the whole COVID situation. Outside of that, though, I mean, you've had to do a lot. It seems like, though, that you have managed to enhance your character throughout all this. You have managed to grow and strengthen yourself. I am very much impressed with an individual such as yourself who can still further develop his creative talents, build a stronger foundation within you. Your wisdom seems to constantly amplify. So I'm really happy to know you, man. You are a treasure in my life. I love the F word out of your fuck. So thank you so much. You are special to me in every way. Love you, buddy.
Love you, dude.
I don't think you watch Supernatural, so you will get this message at the end of the month when we post it on Patreon on which video you got your shout out on. Hope you enjoy. 3.5 weeks later, after our friendship has entirely crumbled due to certain events that have happened. Damn you, David. Damn you. Why would you betray us like that? And take your whole pledge over to Tyrone Magnus's Patreon.
Oh, wow.
I think we post one video more than him a month. What the hell?